I'm just going to jump right in.
Do it.
Welcome back to the Dynasty Happy Hour. The roast of Tyler Gunther is underway. We are going to make redhead jokes and Minnesotan jokes tonight on the Dynasty Happy Hour. Tyler, are you prepared?
I've been living a roast my whole life, Doug. Come on now.
It's true. I mean, you're already got orange hair, so you look roasted as it is.
I mean, I could give you name after name of what I've been called as a kid, and you know what? The best way to approach that is go along with it, because if you don't, it's gonna get worse.
Yeah, you just agree with it. Be like, oh, I am a tomato head. That is a good
I'm always
point.
like, that was a good one.
Nice. I don't know if you watched the roast of Tom Brady yesterday, but it was phenomenal.
Yes, me and my wife
Oh,
enjoyed it very much.
so good.
It was good. A couple of them were cringe, like Rob Gronkowski, Wolf, you. My favorite part was like Kevin Hart saying, oh, I won't spoil it. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna spoil it.
Randy Moss wasn't good. Gronk wasn't great. He was
He
okay.
was rough.
Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura, I wasn't a fan of that skit.
Yeah,
It
I
was
was
a little weird.
Yeah.
But my favorite, Nikki Glazer killed it.
Yeah, just
Sam J, amazing.
and
Tony from Kill Tony, forget about it.
amazing.
Absolutely
And
eviscerated
the
everybody in
guy
like
with
2 minutes.
the guy with the mustache. I
Yeah,
forgot
he
his
was
name.
great. He was sitting in the audience and he came up. And then my favorite was Drew Bledsoe.
Yes,
Nailed it.
the whole show, Bledsoe got hit from every angle, and he was a great sport about it.
Yeah,
And
Bledsoe was good.
and how come nobody hit the fact like Drew Bledsoe would play Tom Brady in a movie about Tom Brady taking over for Drew Bledsoe? Like nobody hit on that because they
Yeah.
are very similar. Like they're
They're both good-looking
structure.
guys.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I was waiting for someone because Rodney Harrison was there. He obviously didn't have any moment on stage. I was waiting for someone to give him shit about the David Tyree catch, and nobody did. Like, oh, he's a Hall of Famer. I'm like, well, if you're a little bit stronger, you probably could have broken up that pass and won a Super Bowl or something, like something.
Yeah,
But
and Bill.
no.
Yeah, and Bill coming out was great. And
I was really looking forward to. I was chatting with Michelle, and I was like, I want Peyton Manning to come out, and he did, and then it was like, it was okay.
yeah, it was all right. Yeah,
I thought it was going to
but
be better.
go watch it. Don't take our word for it. Go ahead and watch it. It was
Oh
great.
yeah, spoiler alert, my bad. Yeah, that's fine. We are here this week to draft recap the American Football Conference. So we're going to do that in a moment. But first, I want to tell you about what I want to tell you. I want to tell you about Manscaped right now. Use code DHH, save 20% off. One of the best products in the business. If you're a guy, even a gal, if you're a hairy gal, you've got some trimming to do. The lawnmower is amazing. All the stuff that comes with it, the lotion, the deodorizer, it's all A+ premium stuff. Go on manscaped.com, use code DHH, save 20% on that today. Mother's Day is coming up, but more importantly, Father's Day is coming up next month. So it is the perfect time to invest in something for your mans or yourself. You get a Father's Day gift. Sounds like something I would do. Like
Yeah,
I find something and I'm like, oh, I'm going to buy this for myself.
Say yeah, chin hairs. Who knows? Who knows what kind of hairs you have? We're not here to judge. We're just here to
No.
help.
Exactly. And we're here to help you get trim and to smell real nice. All right, let's move into this AFC draft recap. We're going to start with the AFC East and the team in the AFC that picked first, which is my New England Patriots. They're on a come up, boys. They picked Drake May, 3rd overall. The new franchise quarterback is in town. Supposedly, they had lucrative offers from multiple teams, and the Patriots said no. And reading everything about the relationship with Drake May, they were locked in on Drake May, and they were not moving off that pick. And I don't blame them because I think Drake May, while he may not start in year one, I think that he probably will start eventually in year one. But even if he sits, Jacoby Brissett, I'm okay with that. Drake May is 21 years old. If he needs a little bit of seasoning, last time I checked, Lamar Jackson sat, Patrick Mahomes sat, Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers. So there is a history of, I would say, franchise quarterbacks that did not start right away. So, I think the Patriots, unless May comes in and he's balling all summer, and then wins the job, I think the plan is for him to sit at least for the beginning of the season. So, I really love the pick for real football. it actually presented an opportunity where Drake May slipped in Superflex leagues. We're in the UDPL. I had the 105, and I was hopeful to maybe get Malik Neighbors there, but he went at 103. And then someone reached out to me and said, hey, because I was like, oh, I'll listen for offers. He's like, hey, I want JJ McCarthy. I'll move up from 107. And I traded to get the 106. So I was like, I'll take your free third round picks because I don't want JJ McCarthy. And I took Drake May at 106 and Roma Dunze at 107. And I love the value. I got Drake May at 108 in another Superflex league. Give me the value.
Yeah, he's a smash in value, just like Herbert was back in the day. It's like one of those. It's like watching a Disney fairy tale movie, a princess movie. Like we've all seen the script, we know what's gonna happen. Yeah. Drake May is gonna blossom into this beautiful quarterback come late in the season, and he's gonna produce. We always forget about what we thought about these players early on. Drake May and Caleb Williams were 1 and 2, and nobody had any idea about Jane Daniels, JJ McCarthy. Nobody had any idea about these guys. Like Bo Nix was kind of like he's okay, he might be a 3rd or 4th round pick. Yeah, Penix was kind of like an afterthought. Oh, maybe like a 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round pick. But it was May and Caleb, and I mean, you look at it now, and Caleb is now last on the pecking order. Like some are like, "Hey, Bo Nix, if you want immediate production," it's like, no. Drake May has everything we want in a quarterback, and my thing is like, there was 2 teams trying to trade up, the Giants and the Vikings, and they were offering a lot. The Vikings offered their 2 first rounds this year and next year's first to go up and get May, and Patriots said no. Think about that, and if we're going to go look at these quarterbacks and how much teams wanted them, like nobody wanted Bo Nix. And I'm sorry to say it, like even though this is kind of what scares me, is the Vikings were the only team on JJ McCarthy. That's like, it only takes one. And Cecil Lammy brought it up on the Audible today. Like it only takes one team.
There was a lot of smoke.
Yeah, it only takes one team to boost that ADP, and JJ McCarthy is shown to do it. I do like JJ McCarthy. I think he is in the Brock Purdy style route. I mean, honestly, I'd rather have Purdy than JJ right now if we're gonna choose pick one of the 2. But I mean, JJ could be a Brock Purdy in this offense. That's what you're looking for upside. Yeah. But the downside is he's not great. The upside for Drake May is he's Justin Herbert. I think the downside with Drake May is he could be Daniel Jones, the best Daniel Jones. Like we're talking
from
like
2 years ago wasn't terrible.
Like Daniel Jones only had 15 touchdowns, but very athletic, can run the ball, and I mean a low end quarterback 1. That's what I think his range of outcomes are. People are saying he could be like Trubisky and stuff. No, like Drake May is a little. I think he's a lot better.
He's a more polished passer for sure.
Yes, so I love Drake May in the spot he landed.
Yep,
like,
and go
ahead. My issue is like we got to get this whole old Patriots out of our head. It's hard because it's been 24 years, 25 years. Like it's hard to get that out of your head. We got to get rid of that because it's a whole new regime. They brought in a bunch of new people, and they definitely upgrade this offense, which we'll talk about now.
Yeah, and they're already doing things differently. Like Gerard Mayo's opening up things that were never opened up to the press and the media before. Which is great. He's actually answering questions and smiling. So it's like, whoa, this is new. But you know what? The biggest important thing that the Patriots did outside of drafting Drake May was focusing on the offensive line and also focusing on the wide receiver position. So in the 2nd round, 37th overall, they picked Jalen Polk out of Washington. And then they went in the 4th round, 110th overall. One of my favorite picks of the draft. I was happy to land this player on the Patriots was Javon Baker out of UCF, who I like quite a bit. And then later on, they added Jaheim Bell from Florida State, who a lot of people had as a top 5 tight end. And why I like that move, you can talk about the receivers, but why I like the Jaheim Bell move is that their tight ends are currently Hunter Henry, who came back on a extension more or less. They signed Austin Hooper. The only athletic tight end they have is Jaheim Bell. So he could find himself on the field and in a role. Earlier than we may think. He was a later round pick. He's kind of that hybrid. He's not big enough. He's not too small, but he's athletic. So he's one of those weird hybrid guys.
He stretches the seam for sure. Like That's what it's gonna be used for.
And I'm taking flyers on him. His ADP is like 5th round in rookie drafts, and I'm okay with that because I can see a path. Austin Hooper's going to be there for a year. I can see a path where the opportunity could be there for Jaheim Bell, and I'm fine with pushing him on my taxi squad.
Yeah, especially in the 5th round. Doug, you and I talked all day today, like how
So
bad. Like
even the 4th round's bad.
Cecil Lammy and Sigmund Bloom talked today, and they were like, okay, this is the first year of NIL. There wasn't as many like elite drafters or even depth. Next year it'll get better, and it'll keep getting better. Just this year was very tough, especially in like the undrafted free agents and all that. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Jalen Polk, though, I like the pick. So that was a run of like 6 receivers that went, and Polk was kind of at the end of that run. So I don't know if they were targeting someone else. There was rumors they were trying to trade back into the 1st round to get somebody. I don't know who that somebody would have been, but I'm happy with Jalen Polk. I think that a guy like Jalen Polk can be Drake May's best friend because he can do a little bit of everything. I've seen a lot of people comp him to Robert Woods as a ceiling, and I'd be okay with that. Like, that's not terrible. Robert Woods is a good NFL player with a solid career. I'm more excited for Javon Baker, though, because they don't have outside guys on that roster. I mean, Tyquan Thornton's going to be cut. Booty's gone. You've got Juju Smith-Schuster, Demario Douglas, Kendrick Bourne. Those guys all work over the middle. Javon Baker has the mentality to be an alpha outside receiver, and I want to see that happen.
I mean, all we've seen is like the Giants draft tiny slot receivers, except for Neighbors. Like the Patriots are finally like,
not tiny, but
the Patriots are finally like, hey, we need a diverse group of receivers. Okay, you get Jalen Polk, who's like the safety net, who's like a poor man's Brandon Ayuk if he can get his route running as good as Ayuk, because he's got like strong hands. He's okay at route running. He can work better at it, but I think Polk's upside is like a poor man's Brandon Ayuk because he's got the size of it. But Baker has that like almost like an Ocho Cinco type mentality.
I mean,
like,
he's already popping off, and it's fun to watch a New England receiver kind of talk the talk. Now I want to see him walk the walk.
And I mean, he's talented. We've seen like, he ran like a 4.53 or something like that. It was okay. It wasn't.
He was an Alabama kid.
Yeah, and he's a very high recruit, so we got to look at that. But if he can have that mentality, like we've seen it with these low draft receivers like Amon-Ra St. Brown and Puka, we've seen these guys like, okay, maybe there's a chance, and we're all hungry for it. And I've seen him go in the mid third, early third, like he's going up draft boards a little bit because
I traded up to get him in a league where I noticed there was a noticeable. I was at like 3-7, and I looked and I said, "There's only 3 players I really want," and I was like 6 picks away, and I was like, "I need to trade into this tier to get a player that I want," because I wasn't interested in really anybody else. So I traded up. I traded like a future 4th in my 307 to move up to like 302 or 303, and I got Javon Baker, and I was happy with that.
The nice thing is you can have Baker on the outside, you can have Polk on the outside, and you got Demario Douglas on the inside. Like Juju's knees he's got no knees, but that they've got like a good 3 wide receiver setup, and I think that is awesome. Like you've never seen Patriots with this for a long, long time. Like you haven't seen it. Like, okay, they finally got 2 outside guys and a slot receiver that they can just stay and know their positions. Yeah, they'll move Polk and Baker inside and move them around because that's what you do nowadays. You just don't keep them where they should.
And then they have Kendrick Bourne, who he's coming off an ACL, but he was having a good season. Yeah, and a good training camp with them after getting out of the doghouse eventually.
You got Ramondre, you got Antonio Gibson. Like this offense is looking up.
Yeah,
and
it's moving in the right direction.
Like you said, like I think we'll see May earlier than you think.
Probably. Let's move on to the New York Jets, who were picking 10th overall, and everyone thought for sure they were going to go Brock Bowers, but they didn't. But they did take a pass catcher in the 2nd round. Beginning of the 3rd? Yeah, 65th
First
overall.
Pick in the 3rd.
Yeah, it was Western Kentucky wide receiver Malachi Corley. They took Wisconsin running back Braylon Allen, and then they took Isaiah Davis, South Dakota State running back, who a lot of people liked as a sleeper at 173rd overall. So we'll talk about the backfield here in a second. And then Florida State quarterback Jordan Travis went in the 5th round. And I love this because I love Jordan Travis. I'm a Florida State guy. His game reminds me of Russell Wilson with not quite as much arm strength. He obviously tore his ACL. Florida State was undefeated. They didn't make the playoff. I'm still not over it. But
obviously,
it's a great landing spot. Aaron Rodgers is 40 years old. The backup is what? Tyrod Taylor?
Yeah.
And now you have Jordan Travis. Maybe there's a path to him being, maybe in a couple of years. Who knows?
Hey, he said he wants to be the heir apparent. He's got that in his mind.
Because this class isn't as deep, Jordan Travis, I thought he was not going to get drafted in Superflex drafts. He got drafted way earlier than I thought he would. So I missed out in a couple leagues. So I was like, man, this draft is not deep.
Yeah, Spencer Rattler, I had to trade up to go get because I'm like, okay, this is not looking pretty. Like this is what we talked about all day, Doug. Is just at the end of the draft, you better go get your guy because
4th round. I'm like,
yeah,
I guess. But let's talk about Malachi Corley. We were chatting. I chatted after I picked him in some leagues because I didn't want to try to tip you off. For me, Malachi Corley could very well be this year's Jaden Reed. And for me, it's a clear path to the second most amount of targets on the team. So you have Garrett Wilson. He's obviously locked in alpha. Mike Williams can't stay healthy. Alan Lazard, I know he's Rodgers' buddy, whatever. Corley could get the second most targets on this team. Maybe third if they throw to Breece Hall a lot. The tight end is Jeremy Ruckert and Ty Conklin. So they use – I comp them because the Packers used Reed out of the backfield. They moved him around. And I think Corley can do a lot of these same things. It's really going to depend on – can he build rapport with Rodgers, or is Rodgers going to be a dick?
It's the latter.
Probably. Is he going to get Amari Rodgers? That's
he could, and that's who I feel like he kind of is more. We talked about this pre-draft. I'm kind of staying away. I don't have him in any league, which
everyone wants to call him Randall Cobb now, and I'm like,
yes. And the thing is Rodgers does not like rookies. He does not like throwing to rookies, so we could see a situation where, what's his name, Xavier Gibson is the slot guy who has shown a lot of promise, who he liked last year.
Yep.
So instead of drafting Corley in the late second, early third, I think I'll pass and go a different route. I don't see the production. People are like, oh, he's Debo. Yeah, he's a big guy. He's thick for his size, but he's not Debo.
Yeah.
Like we can't get stuck in that Tyreek Hill Debo trap ever again. Yeah. We got to remember
that. This running back landing spots made me very sad. Braylon Allen is the youngest player in the draft. I was hoping he would go somewhere where he could maybe get carries in year one to a running back needy team like Dallas or somewhere like that. But he ends up on the Jets behind Breece Hall. They drafted Izzy Abanikanda last year out of Pitt. And then they draft Isaiah Davis. So I'm like, Jesus, so Braylon Allen's been slipping into the 4th round of rookie drafts pretty easily. I don't mind taking him there because, Breece is going to be a free agent after next year.
No, he's not.
I mean, you never know.
After Rodgers leaves, they better hope that he's still there because he's only going to be the.
I mean,
he's
you
never
never know. I mean, but Braylon Allen's so young that even if he backed up Breece Hall for 2 years, and if Hall did leave or there's an injury, I could see some upside there. So I'm willing to take the dip on him in the 4th round. That's okay. And the other running back has been pretty much not getting drafted.
So Ray, I listened to his podcast today, and he had a really good comment. Just like the Jets tried the veteran route with Delvin Cook, it didn't work. So they went hard on the rookie route. They decided to back him up with 3 young players in Abanikanda and the 2 rookies this year, and they're just going to hope that they landed somebody. Yeah. Which in long term, it'll probably be Izzy, who is dirt cheap now because everybody still loves these 2 rookies. So maybe go see if you can get Izzy for cheap because I thought he showed a lot last year, and then he had that unfortunate injury.
Yeah, I threw an offer in a league out, but it got rejected for Izzy Abanikanda. So tis what it is.
Is that Abanikanda didn't want none?
Nope. Let's move on to the Miami Dolphins. They used their 1st round pick on Chop Robinson, 21st overall. They got offensive with a lineman, Patrick Paul, a lot of people liked, at 55th. And then they traded a 2025 3rd round pick to move up in the 4th to get Tennessee running back Jalen Wright. Now, I've been targeting Wright. I know you've been targeting Wright as well. To me, this is the easiest piece of the puzzle to fit. You have a player that's could comp very easily to Raheem Mostert. You have a 32-year-old Raheem Mostert who was mostly healthy last year for the first time since I can remember. You have Devin Achane, who couldn't stay healthy either. There is absolutely zero reason why Jalen Wright couldn't get on the field in year one in that scheme with his speed and be fantasy relevant year one.
Yes, agreed. We will have our most rostered rookie episode later on this year after all our rookie drafts are done and auctions. But spoiler alert, Wright is very high for me. I have him in a lot of spots. And he's very young still. He's built bigger. He's 217 pounds, I think it was. Yeah. 213, 217, one of the two. He's bigger and he's fast. So this is somebody okay, you got Mostert who's 205. Achane who's 190. Then you got this guy. Day. Then you got this guy who's actually built like a running back that runs not as fast as Achane, probably as fast as Mostert.
I mean, Mostert's fast. He's probably comparable to Mostert.
Yes, but is younger. And like you said, you got these two injury type players. People are sleeping on Wright. People are taking who did the Packers draft again? I forgot.
Marshawn Lloyd.
Yes, people are taking Lloyd over Wright, which doesn't.
People are taking Blake Corum over Wright.
I don't get it, because if Wright hits, his price skyrockets like crazy. Because
they obviously wanted him. They gave up a 3rd round pick next year to get into the 4th.
Yes,
which is what we do when we're in the when we make trades, we give away a pick next year just to move up.
Yeah.
So that means and I only do that when there's a player that I target. I don't do it for shits and giggles. I only do it for I want this player, so I'm going to move up now.
Yeah.
100%. So Mike McDaniel, when Mike McDaniel makes moves like that, and the player comp is so close to Mostert, it just makes too much sense. And I think a lot of people maybe they're just not. Just people aren't putting enough thought into it. Maybe they just think he's behind those guys, whatever. But it's not like that.
There's another player. Now, Malik Washington. I'm going to put the cart before the horse. There is a story that came out that Mike McDaniel, for 2 rounds before they took him, was literally trying his hardest to get the GM to take him. Hey, I want this guy, take him. Yep. But they had other needs. They had more important things that they had to do. Malik Washington was his pound the table guy. And he finally got him in the 6th round, which is nuts for the production. Malik Washington, who was a lot of people's favorite, okay, this is our sleeper. And now everybody's sleeping on him again. I don't get it, because I'm trying to target him either free agent or late in the draft. I
was able to get him in the draft in a couple of spots.
He's got Braxton Berrios to fight with. And you know what? Tua isn't a strong arm guy. I could see Washington just snagging these short passes.
And Tyreek Hill is also getting older.
Yeah.
I'm not talking this year, but over time.
So Malik Washington, I think with the way they got Jonnu at tight end, but they don't use a tight end as much as people hope. Malik Washington, I think, is going to be one of those guys that you're damn, I should have taken him late 3rd. I should have traded up and tried to get him. And you're gonna be disappointed with it. Oh, he's a late sleeper. Oh, nope, 6th round draft capital. I'm off. No, don't be off him.
I traded up a few spots in the 4th round of a draft to snag him, because I looked at who was available on the board. I'm there's a couple guys I like. I'm 4 picks out. I'm on the outside looking in, and I was you know what? Let's scoot up and get the guy I want.
And if you don't get Malik, go get Taj, the other Washington they took.
A lot of people like Taj Washington out of USC.
Yeah, he's another slot guy. They are looking to replace Braxton Berrios.
Braxton Berrios is making decent money. He's an okay.
He's gonna be there. He's gonna be their kick returner. If you notice in this draft, there's been a lot of teams that are okay, the new kick return rule, we're gonna use this to our advantage.
We're gonna put Justin Fields out there to return kicks.
Wouldn't shock me.
Wouldn't shock me either. Let's move on to the Buffalo Bills, and let's circle these wagons. They trade down twice in the 1st round, and they settle in at pick number 33. And they take the very entertaining, which I did not know about him, Florida State wide receiver Keon Coleman, who I was really off of. I watched a lot of Florida State ball, and he ran the slow 40. I was he has separation issues. There's things that I didn't like about his tape. He gets the draft capital. So now he's really sneaking up into the late first round in super flex leagues or early second, because we all see the opportunity. They've already said that they're going to try to use him like they used Stephon Diggs, which, I mean, duh, because all they have is like small, tiny guys running around the field. So Keon Coleman can be that alpha is what they're hoping. I'm not so sure, but I know he is entertaining as shit because he's funny as hell.
Yeah. I had him at around my like 206, 207 pre-draft, and I've definitely bumped him up to 201, 202, and I feel comfortable with that. He's 21 years old, just turned. He's a baby. He can still learn. And what if I told you, also heard this on the Audible of Cecil Lammy, like what if we were to tell you that Jordan Travis is not good, Doug, and he underthrew Keon Coleman a bunch?
I mean,
So
that doesn't surprise me.
Those jump ball opportunities that he had separation, yet he had to go back and get the ball, which is where his contested catch ability has been shown a bunch because he is very good at that. I still think he's got a lot to learn. He is, take this for what you want, he is CeeDee Lamb's cousin. So there's a pretty good player to learn from. And
they're not tight, though, I heard. No, I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, he's one of those guys that has the moxie that would fit with Josh Allen. He has the guy that you just have a feeling might hit. You know, like he's just one of those guys that you just feel like he's going to hit. Will it be to the extreme point or will it be T. Higgins? I'm fine with the T. Higgins. That's fine with me.
I've seen a lot of people comp because of their speed. I mean, T's not a burner, but he's just a good player.
Long, lanky, good at contested catches, doesn't get separation. Yeah. And if that's what it ends up at the 201, yeah, give me Josh Allen's T. Higgins.
Yeah. And then the Bills, after taking Keon Coleman, the only other offensive skill position that they focused on was running back. They took Kentucky running back Ray Davis, who a lot of people love, 128th overall.
36 years old.
I like this move because outside of James Cook, they have Ty Johnson. They brought in Latavius Murray and Leonard Fournette last year. They're both gone. So Ray Davis could be involved in year one. Obviously, if there's an injury to James Cook, Davis is a guy that's built for like a 3-down role. Because he's a tough dude. Great story with Ray Davis. So I think this is he'll be a fan favorite in Buffalo because of the way that he plays. I've seen him go early 4th round, sometimes late 3rd, and I think that's okay. All things considered, he was one of the running backs that landed in a place where I was like, okay, I can see him playing in year one. Where a lot of these running backs, it was like, ugh, I like the player, but I don't like the landing spot. So Ray Davis, I didn't mind this spot whatsoever.
No, I like it. And for me, he's going to have an opportunity. He's better than Ty Johnson. He will definitely get touches. They don't want to give it all to James Cook, but
no.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys that if you took in the early 3rd, you're going to get some light production from him, which is good.
Mm-hmm. Let's move our way to the AFC North because alphabetically, they were right here. So let's go to the Baltimore Ravens. They didn't focus highly in the draft on skill positions. But they killed the draft again because Baltimore just freaking drafts good every year.
The whole North, except the Browns because they had no picks. But
that's true.
A lot of the North nailed the draft.
Yeah. So the Ravens at pick 113 took North Carolina wide receiver Devontae Walker. And then they followed that up with pick 165 and took Marshall running back Rasheen Ali. Now, when you think about the Ravens, obviously, we were so used to Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins being in that backfield. Keaton Mitchell tore his ACL, so he may not be ready for the beginning of the season because he's tore it late in the season. You got Derrick Henry there. A lot of people like this Ali kid, and I've been taking him in the 5th round of rookie drafts or UDFAs as a flyer. He's got a good prospect profile. He measures out pretty well. His production was good. He's relatively athletic. So for me, he's a great late round guy. And then Tez Walker, not a fan. I know they need speed. They want someone bigger on the outside. They've been they were talking him up earlier this week, but I don't know. His Senior Bowl was bad. His tape is okay. I don't think he's reliable. So for me, I'm not drafting Tez Walker at all.
Yeah, and the nice thing about Tez Walker is you don't need to draft him early. You can take him in the 4th round. So as a flyer, that's fine. But in this offense, is it okay? Like you got Zay Flowers, Bateman just got a contract extension. You got the 2 tight ends already. It's going to be difficult for targets. Ali, I do like him as a sleeper, but he's rising up boards because people like you said with Jalen Wright, like people see the obvious, and it's like, okay, this guy could step on the field, and a team that is a very good running team with
Mm-hmm.
Lamar Jackson. So if he sees the field, his value will boost up a little bit. But I think we'll see him a little bit on the field. Yeah, but for Tez Walker, if he's there in the fourth round, I might take a flyer on him here and there. But
The
yeah,
fourth
like
round's
if
pretty ugly, so I'm cool with that.
yeah, I mean he's a high profile guy. He was
Yeah.
thrown to by Herbert. The issue is how many targets is he actually going to get? Which we
I
could see
can't imagine it would be a lot.
Jalen Hyatt situation is what I'm seeing here.
Like how they use Nelson Aguilar, like he had the occasional target here and there, and he scored on a big play, but not anything fantasy relevant.
Yeah.
So I can see that. All right, let's move our way we're on to Cincinnati, as Bill Belichick would say. So I like what Cincinnati did in this draft. They took Amarius Mims 18th overall to protect the franchise, who Joe Burrow is throwing and looks good as of right now. So it's good to see him recovered from his issues that he had last year. But they took Alabama wide receiver Jermaine Burton 80th overall. And the only other offensive skill positions that they dipped into, they double dipped at tight end. And both of these guys are very intriguing to me. So this Iowa tight end, Eric All, went 115th overall. And then Arizona tight end, Tanner McLaughlin, went 194. Both of those guys had a lot of buzz in the pre-draft process. They signed Mike Gesicki in the offseason. Nobody cares. Mike Gesicki is washed. He's a name that was once fantasy relevant 5 years ago. But either one of these guys could beat out Gesicki and get more snaps. They did re-sign Drew Sample, who's a nice blocking tight end. I know, Tyler, you've been able to draft/stash Eric All in a couple of spaces, right?
Yeah, and we listened to Thor Nystrom advice here, and Thor has stated that if Eric All can stay healthy, he will be up there with Ben Sinnott and possibly Brock Bowers. Like, he's got the athleticism to do it.
And he's an Iowa tight end. You always bet on those.
I mean, he was even saying he threw up some mad stats on Fantasy Football Weekly with Paul Charchian that Eric All, when he was healthy in Iowa's games, like he was putting up monster numbers, running away from cornerbacks who were drafted early, and he's like he could have been in the 4.5, even 4.4 range for speed if he was to test. But he even said, like, hey, he had a back injury and an ACL, and since the Bengals took him in the fourth round, it shows that they're not nervous about it, so he shouldn't be as well. I think he's definitely a big upside guy. Like, if you have Tez Walker, Eric All, I'm taking All.
All, yeah.
So,
all day.
And going with Burton, it's a perfect situation. But the issue is can the head case that we hear about, is it true? Is it overblown? But he's got the talent, and he could be that outside guy after Higgins leaves. He's definitely going to replace Boyd, unless it's Charlie Jones if they want to go the older, younger guy.
Yeah.
But Burton has the talent. He's a very talented player. It just depends on what is he going to do. I think that's the issue that we're all dealing with. Like, it's in his hands. He's, I think, a late round second round pick or an early third.
Yeah.
And if you're able to say you missed out on McConkey or something like that, and you're like, damn, like Burton's a great second place piece to go get, because I think those two talent wise could be neck and neck. And we'll get to McConkey and stuff that Ray brought up to me today that is very interesting.
Yeah, I think the thing with Burton, when Hushmanzada came out to announce the pick, like, he'd been training with Hushmanzada. So to me, like, Hushmanzada signed off to the Bengals that, like, about him. So I think that, I know he's got some personality stuff going on, but I mean, if Hushmanzada's been working closely with him and he's telling the franchise, like, this kid's great, whatever, like, da-da-da-da, that means a lot to me. So I think, hopefully he keeps his nose clean and he's productive. But the skill set is definitely there.
Hushmanzada had to deal with Ocho Cinco all those years. I'm pretty sure Hushmanzada knows how to deal with a little bit of head case.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Let's move on to the Browns, because there's not a lot to talk about there.
Yeah,
they drafted Louisville wide receiver Jamari Thrash, 156th overall.
No thanks.
It's a clogged wide receiver room. There are some people that like Thrash quite a bit. I mean, I would take him if he was not, and he's not getting drafted typically, or he's late fifth. Again, taxi squad stash, I'm cool with that. But outside of that, not too much going on with that one. Let's move on to Pittsburgh, who, in my opinion, had one of the best drafts. Not
The best
only
draft.
beefing up their offensive line, which they've needed help with.
Arthur Smith is still rock hard about this draft.
Yeah, I
Ugh.
mean they draft Troy Fatanu and Zach Frazier, and then in the third round with pick 84, they take wide receiver Roman Wilson, who to me, you drop Roman Wilson in that Deontay Johnson role, another guy that like he could be the second pass catcher on this offense. He could be the first pass catcher on this offense because Pickens isn't a big target hog. Freiermuth can't stay healthy. Maybe Wilson's the reliable guy and he ends up leading the team in targets in his rookie season. It could happen. I actually drafted him at the beginning of the third round in UDPL because I was like, all right, I like his opportunity out of the gate. We all know the Steelers' third round wide receivers, their hit rate is unbelievable. The offensive line is beefed up. The quarterback position is upgraded. Like, to me, Roman Wilson is a guy that was a big winner coming out of the draft.
My thing is people are like, oh, Arthur Smith, run first scheme. Arthur Smith is a master at fooling us all. What says he can't come out and actually support 2 or 3 receivers in this offense? Who says he hasn't learned from his mistakes and is like, okay, maybe I should throw the ball more. Even though I've got these 2 good running backs now, maybe it's okay to throw the ball more than 20 times a game. Arthur Smith was not a great head coach.
No.
But he showed in Tennessee he's a good OC. Mm-hmm. He's a pretty damn good NFL OC. And if we've seen, like, you've got to grow. Mike McCarthy did it too. He's grown as an offensive play caller. You have to. Otherwise, you're not going to survive or get another head coaching opportunity.
Yep.
Arthur Smith could do that. And Roman Wilson, if that happens, is going to be the steal of the draft. Like, I loved him coming out. I thought he should be an early second. And you know what's going to happen? I don't have him anywhere right now, Doug. And he's going to blow up.
I like the sound of that. That'd be great. I think, Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, obviously big winners coming out of the draft. So if you had them on your roster, they'd get a bump too because they get that extra support on the offensive line. Plus, they made some moves in free agency. Pittsburgh's look and their defense is good. I mean, Pittsburgh looks good. They'll win at least 8 or 9 games like they do every year and get in the playoffs. We'll see if they can go any further than that. Obviously, the upgrade at quarterback is going to be big for them, whether it's Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. They're both upgrades over any freaking Pickett or both. Let's so that takes care of the north. You want to go south or do you want to head out west?
Let's go south.
Let's go south. All right. Who's my closest team? Let's go to the Tennessee Titans, shall we? They didn't really do much from a skill position. This will be easy peasy. They drafted one wide receiver.
Took a tackle.
They did.
This is pretty much based off of a new offensive scheme. They already had the offensive stuff in place. They went hard in the free agency with that. And then the rest of the team, they decided to go in the draft. We all knew they were going to go offensive lineman, which was good for anybody like Pollard. You got Tajay Spears, who got a bump because the offensive line is bumped. Will Levis gets a bump. This offense could
100%.
Will
They're
Levis
setting him up for success.
Yes. And Will Levis, could he be a poor man's Joe Burrow? Why not? Burrow, I think, can slide it into a keyhole. But Will Levis, who knows? But he's got 1 year. 1 year to prove it. What can go wrong, right?
Right, yeah, because if they're bad, they'll have a top 10 pick again, and then they'll probably reassess the quarterback situation after this year. But, he did show flashes last year. I love his moxie. Was a lot of fun to watch him and his competitiveness on the field.
Yeah, right. You like the way he eats a banana.
Yes. So at least I think he'll be fun to watch. And that offense will be much better than it was last year because it was not great. Let's move on to Jacksonville. They made a big splash, 23rd overall. They lose Calvin Ridley to the aforementioned Titans in the division. They signed Gabe Davis, yawn. They have Christian Kirk coming back, who I like a lot. And then Evan Ingram, who was sneaky, like 4th in the league in receptions last year. But they add Brian Thomas Jr. On the outside at 23rd overall. So he gets first-round draft capital. He's typically going in your Superflex leagues anywhere from like 9 to 11.
Yeah.
He's really not making it out of the first round. And I can see why. He had the one monster year for LSU. He's a burner. a lot of people comp him to DJ Chark coming out, which is fair size-wise and everything. I think he's probably better than that. A lot of people criticize because he doesn't have the route tree, which is very similar to what DK Metcalf had at Ole Miss. So he could have a DK Metcalf type of role as he starts to learn the offense.
If that's the case, sign me up.
Yeah, and the thing I like about this is that, Trevor Lawrence, they picked up his fifth-year option. He's going to sign a massive extension, and Brian Thomas will be the one receiver that's linked to him for the next 5 years. So I like that a lot, especially if they mesh well. So I think this was the one that everyone had in the draft process was Brian Thomas Jr. going to the Jags or the Bengals, but the Jags ended up getting him.
So with Brian Thomas Jr., to me, it's like, do you love him? And if not, you're probably not high on him, and which means you probably won't get him. There's another receiver that we'll talk about later on, a couple of them, that possibly could jump him if you're not a fan, because to me, I don't think there's an in-between with Brian Thomas. I think he's either going to be really good or he's just going to be Gabe Davis, which they signed.
Run 9 routes.
Yes. So the talent's there. To me, it's the inexperience that scares me a little bit. The fact that he's only really been a big-time receiver for 2 years. But, I mean, he produced big time.
A lot of this class is very much that.
Yes. And, I mean, it's take your pick in this kind of late round first. Doug, you and I have in trade X7109, so we're probably going to be deciding between him and another player, and the size difference is massive between the two, but the play style is also different, and the breakout age is different, and yeah, but Brian Thomas, if he blows up, we're looking at what Trevor Lawrence had with T. Higgins, but I think it's a plus version of a T. Higgins because the athleticism is greater than T. Higgins back when Trevor Lawrence had him in college. Yep. So, like we saw Trevor Lawrence with Justin Ross when he was healthy. Could it be that? I think that's what we could see if Brian Thomas can kind of expand that route tree.
Yeah. They drafted a running back late, Keelan Robinson. I don't know much about him. I'm not overly interested.
I am.
Yeah?
Yes.
You don't trust Tank, huh?
No, but he's got the profile of a pass catching back, which I like to see. Travis Etienne, yes, he had some catches, but Jacksonville always seems to want that scat back, pass catching back. He's 5'11", 191 pounds. He's got pretty big hands. Trust me, I've done my research because I've been looking at UDFAs all over the board and trying to find any sense. Yes, any sense of stuff. And yeah, I actually like him as kind of a flyer if you have room in your taxi squad because why not? Look at the depth chart, maybe get some.
Yeah, I mean, the depth chart is kind of thin behind Etienne, that's for sure. All right, let's move on to the Colts. They drafted Texas wide receiver Adonai Mitchell, much maligned through the draft process at number 52. Adam Schefter, a week or two before the draft said that, the name that will go higher than people think is Adonai Mitchell, who obviously was getting some first-round buzz, but then slipped. Interview process supposedly wasn't good. There's some rumored issues about him handling his diabetes, blah, 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 blah. I like this fit from a real football standpoint. From a fantasy standpoint, he's going to join Michael Pittman. He's going to join Josh Downs. Whoever they decide to start at tight end. By the way, go buy Jelani Woods if someone is giving him away cheap. He's a freak athlete and should be their starting tight end there, or Will Mallory even. Kylan Granson, Mo Alley Cox. They have 18 tight ends on the Colts. But Adonai Mitchell was the ad here. And then, GM Chris Ballard defended Mitchell and really explained that all the things that he does well. And a lot of people, there's some very smart people. Josh Norris was really high on Adonai Mitchell. I think he was his wide receiver 5 before the draft. He offers a unique skill set, but again, he's one of these guys that doesn't have a lot of experience, had one good year, and he did it across from Xavier Worthy, which we'll talk about a little bit later, which is good to see him operating as a 2. I think this is an interesting spot. Pittman's there long-term. Downs is there, at least for a few more years. So talk to me about Adonai. I think he's a value. I got him at 206. And I was cool. And I was cool taking him there.
So having the team back you up is great. Like with AD Mitchell, Chris Ballard came on and was like, hey, I don't give a damn about his character. I just want him in the building. That's what we care about is when he's in the building. My issue is the offense. Now, Pittman is there. You got Josh Downs, who Anthony Richardson showed he has some connection with. You had Jonathan Taylor. Anthony Richardson, how many passing, attempts is he going to have? That's my issue. And if
plenty.
that's, yeah, but will he?
I mean, are they going to run him a ton? He already got injured like last year. That would be stupid. They have Jonathan Taylor, one of the best running backs in the league.
Now, if Mitchell turns into like a Martavis Bryant, back when he was kind of just the second fiddle to Antonio Brown, or the third fiddle when Juju and Antonio Brown were there, okay, I'm good with that. But at 207, I'm kind of trying to search for more upside. I don't know. I wasn't a fan of him coming in. He was one of my more let's stay away from players.
Okay.
And I think that's still in my head. I'm just still kind of staying away. I had opportunity to draft him in UDPL. I traded up, and I took Xavier Legette just because I kind of liked the situation more. I thought he would get more, and I like the player more. I think he can offer more to the team as well.
Another weird draft profile.
Yes, it's filled with it, and
there's lots of them.
And honestly, if AD Mitchell hits and Legette doesn't, okay, that's not going to shock me. If it's the other way around, okay, that's not going to shock me. That's what you're kind of saying.
Yeah, the only other move the Colts made was drafting Oregon State wide receiver Anthony Gould at 142. Obviously, he's going to be absolutely buried on the depth chart. I don't know much about him, but he's got a very unsuspecting name, Anthony Gould. Doesn't sound like a wide receiver or even an NFL football player.
Really, 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 really good kick returner. And
he's a specialist, more or less.
Yes, but he's fast, and he's a good route runner.
Okay.
I actually took him in UDPL in the 5th round. This is where I did my research, Doug.
I didn't catch that.
And he is specifically used for kicker and punt returns. That's what their plan is. But there's also a good chance they can make plays for him because of his speed and his movement ability. So he could be one of those guys that sees the field.
Hate Alec Pierce.
And he's one of those guys that could see the field and maybe could get integrated into the offense a little more. Could be the wide receiver 4 on this team.
Okay. Alec Pierce, dead for now. Let's move on to Houston because this is a quick one. They took tight end Cade Stover out of Ohio State at pick 123, and then Louisville running back Jawar Jordan at 205. I know Cade Stover was a highly recruited tight end and had some buzz, and then he goes to the Texans, which just re-signed Dalton Schultz. They still have Brevin Jordan there. Please, free Brevin Jordan. I've got a big sign that says free Brevin Jordan and free agency next year. Any thoughts on either of these guys?
I mean, Stroud played with Strover.
Red Rover.
He played with them, and they talked very glowingly about him in the press conference. So that's always something to look at. And I mean, like we talked about, a 4th round, 5th round pick on a guy that's tied to CJ Stroud. Okay, sure. Let's just throw a dart there.
Yep, I agree with that. All right, let's move to the AFC West and viewer Damon's favorite team and friend of the show, the Denver Broncos. They shake it up, and they, number 12 overall, they take Oregon quarterback Bo Nix, and then at pick 102, I believe they traded up to get into that spot. They take his teammate Troy Franklin. So definitely some of that shower narrative going on between those two, which is fun. And then later in the draft, they take Notre Dame running back Audric Estime at 147. Javonte probably last opportunity with Denver this year. P. Ryan's there, McLaughlin's there. Estime, I don't mind him being the future there. I like Audric Estime. I know people were off him because he ran this low 40, but his tape is good. But Nix, I think, is the smash value of Superflex League.
Not drafts. No mo.
I mean, he's still going early second, early mid.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to be one of those guys that...
Still a value.
He's going to be one of those guys that if you if you kind of felt like you needed a quarterback and you didn't take him, you pass him up because, I don't know, you're like, oh, it's Bo Nix. In season, by week 4, he's going to be putting up 15, 16 points a week, and you're just going to be like, damn. That's what he's going to be at. His upside is a high-end quarterback, too. And, hey, we need those in Superflex. That's fine.
100%, yeah.
He could be Baker Mayfield last year. That's what I think his upside could be. From what I've been told is he's a supercomputer. These are Cecil Lammy's words.
Beep,
Who
bop,
knows?
boop.
Who knows a lot about
About the
Denver?
Broncos. Yeah.
He's a supercomputer. He will pretty much do what Sean Payton needs him to do. And I mean, he started a ton of games, literally a ton of games, to the point where all I see is his Auburn games, and that's why I
I
struggle
think
with
he's
him.
got the record for most games started in college. Like 60
Yes, which is
something.
184.
He went to college for
Just beat Brandon
years.
Whedon.
yeah. Oh my god. And Chris
But
Weinke.
no, I've come around a little bit on Bo Nix just because of the system he's in, and I really like these two receivers that he has. I think Mims could end up being the wide receiver 1 for this team by end of the year because
Okay.
those quick shots. Hey, he's their punt and kick returner. What does he do well? He's got the ball in his hands. He can do a lot with, and Bo Nix is really good at getting the ball out into screens. And Troy Franklin already knows what to do with Bo Nix. They've got an immediate connection. I'm not a Troy Franklin guy, but hey, like the obvious is there. The connection is there.
Mhm.
I mean, Burrow and Chase, not quite that, but
No.
I think we could see 800 yards and 5 touchdowns from Franklin. Like,
Yeah, I
why
think that
not?
would be fair. For me, Nix is the value in Superflex leagues. I was able to get him at 205 in one league. I took him at 111 in a league that I'm absolutely desperate for quarterback. My team's good every year, but I've been rolling out Tua and nobody else. And I'm like, it was the 111, and I was like, ugh, I need to address this quarterback room. And Bo Nix was the best available. So I took him, and I was like, he'll start right away. He'll be my second QB. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
The rest of my roster is deep, so I could afford to kind of like fuck around a little bit and hope that Bo Nix does well.
I mean, the reason why we in Superflex you want a quarterback at that second flex spot. Yeah, you don't need a quarterback, but the reason why is because the comfort you have of for sure getting 12 points. Like, it's easy for them to get 12 points.
Yeah.
And
It's either that or like Josh Palmer. Like,
yes, and so yeah, I've
don't
come
sleep
around on
Josh
Bo.
Palmer.
I've come around on Bo. I've come around on Franklin a tad. I don't have
Sure.
either. I have one Bo Nix in best ball, but I've come around a tad bit. I took Coleman over him in UDPL, and there's a part of me that thought to myself, okay, in season, am I going to sit here and be like, I should have taken the for sure points, but I went the upside shot.
Yep. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you get the receiver that's tied with the elite quarterback, and that's always a good idea. They did take Utah wide receiver Devon Vele, which sounds like a made-up name, at 235th in the draft. So, cool. Let's move on as I scroll. These are all alphabetical, so I'm just going to jabber on for a few minutes until I find, like, the next AFC West team that might be here as I look through them. Let me think alphabetically. It's probably going to be Los Angeles, I would think. So let me just get there. I'm very, very close. You know what? I'm at Kansas City. Let's stop there, and we'll get to LA next. The Chiefs, they move up. The Bills move back. The Chiefs move up to take an offensive skill position. Have you heard this before? Because the Bills traded back, and the Chiefs moved up when the Chiefs drafted Patrick Mahomes. Thank God the Bills righted the ship and took Josh Allen the year after, because they would never hear the end of it. So now the Bills move back, the Chiefs move up, and they take Texas wide receiver Xavier Worthy, the fastest man alive at the combine anyway, number 28 overall, which immediately bumps his Superflex regular draft stock into the first round. He's a lead pipe lock in the first round of your Superflex leagues. Tyler, how do we feel about that?
I like it.
Okay.
People are like, oh, Miko Hardman. People are like, oh, what about Sky Moore? Worthy is different. If you look at his breakout age of 18, and in his recruit, very high, he has every talent you want in this offense. Now, Pat Mahomes has the lowest ADOT, average depth of target, from this past year.
They won the Super Bowl, so who gives a shit?
One thing that he's very good at is running after the catch, because when you're that fast, and also, let's not forget, he is very agile as well. Mm-hmm. He can move. People are going to react about the drop pass in practice, but not read any of the reports that were after. Like, this guy dominated. Yeah. He was running insane routes. He's very fast, and the team loves him. Also, don't think about the guy who's throwing him the ball. That wasn't Pat Mahomes in practice.
Yep.
I've heard nothing but glowing things about this guy. in rookie mini camp so far, except people want to just shine a light on that drop. Doug, you and me have 109. It's going to be between him and Brian Thomas unless somebody out of the big
Probably.
eight fall.
Yeah.
I would have to say my card's on this guy.
That's fair.
I know you're not a big you're against short people because you are a tall person.
I'm not against short people.
See, that's what somebody that is against short people would say. I get it.
And I hate my wife because she's barely 5 feet tall.
But I really think Worthy is going to be the hit that we've been expecting from these guys. I was never big on Sky Moore. Friend of the podcast, podcast.
I wasn't either.
James was massive on him.
Yeah, Sky Moore was the 109, 110.
Miko Hardman was another player that it was all speed. It was nothing else. He was not the route runner that we see from Worthy. He was a special team demon at Georgia and just very fast. And that's the reason why the Chiefs took him, expecting like, hey, maybe he could. No. Worthy is the one that, like, if this doesn't hit, the Chiefs need to look a different direction. But Worthy is their best shot that they've had to find a speed guy that can do more than just speed. And that's what Worthy is. He's more than just speed. He's very young still. He's got a lot to learn. And I think Pat Mahomes is going to love him.
Yeah, and it looks like Rashee Rice is going to be suspended for at least half the season. So he's going to have the opportunity to play right away. Without question. It'll be him, Hollywood Brown. You obviously got Kelsey, but Worthy is going to be a starting receiver on that team week 1. With Rashee Rice being most likely suspended for a wee bit. An intriguing pick they made at 131 was TCU tight end Jared Wiley, who I like a lot. You know, we've been not touting, but Noah Gray has been the name like, when Kelsey, it's going to be Noah Gray day when Kelsey goes away. Well, Kelsey just signed a 2-year extension. Noah Gray still on the team. I like Noah Gray, but to me, Wiley could be the eventual replacement because he is very similar to Travis Kelsey from an athleticism standpoint.
Ex-quarterback.
And he is very cheap in drafts. He's a late round 4, early round 5 guy. So there is definitely value to scrape at the tight end position in your drafts because outside of Bowers and then, Sanat's usually going late second in tight end premiums. And then after that, I mean, it's kind of like pick your poison. So you can get these guys late, and I really like the stashing of Jared Wiley on your taxi for a little bit because maybe he's a successor to Travis Kelsey in a couple of years. Could happen.
So on the New Heights podcast, Kelsey brought him up. They talked about the draft picks, and Kelsey said, hey, an ex-quarterback that turned tight end, I think I know a little bit about that. Mm-hmm. You got to remember, Kelsey was a quarterback recruit into Cincinnati. Like, that's what he's supposed to play, and he turned tight end, and now he's one of the greatest. Like you said, built similar. Even Kelsey said, like, he's a big ass dude. Like, he's bigger than Kelsey, but he's got movement like Kelsey, so he can move.
He's a good athlete.
He just got to learn, and what better to learn to be the next Kelsey than Travis Kelsey? And Travis Kelsey seems like he had a little bit to do with when they drafted him. Like, hey, look at this guy.
Maybe. So only time will tell. And speaking of tight ends, let's go to the Las Vegas Raiders. They take Brock Bowers, 13th overall, which pretty much nuked your Michael Mayer. Tyler, I traded Michael Mayer to you and got the 207, and then you traded away Michael Mayer for a 6th-round pick. How do you feel?
I feel fine because I got Eric All, another upside shot at tight end. That's what we're chasing for tight end. I told you were laughing at me a little bit, but I kind of
this did not age well.
I kind of talked to you a little bit about it. Like, hey, at tight end, we're chasing upside. We want that top 8 style tight end on a team that has upside, and the Bengals did. So I'm like, you know what? I think Mayer, unless he gets traded, like a Greg Olsen, we saw he got traded when he was drafted by the Bears.
Chicago, yeah.
Maybe Mayer gets traded, but from all I've heard, the Raiders panicked. They had no plan.
He's the best player on our board. Just take him.
Apparently, Tressman, I think that's the GM.
Unless they were like, they like how they use Evan Ingram in Jacksonville, and he's going to be used like that.
I guess I think they panicked because that's all I heard is like the communication wasn't well in that building, and also they fired a bunch of scouts after the draft or let them go. So I'm not sure what happened. But
Yikes.
yeah, it's already a shit show
Yikes.
in Las Vegas. It's not a good start. Not a great start when you draft a tight end when you had many other needs because Mayer was there.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, if the Raiders didn't take him, the Rams probably would have traded up. The Colts would have probably traded up to take Bowers.
The Rams getting him would have been sick.
Yes, the Rams are trying very hard to trade up.
I heard that. Yeah, that would have been awesome.
And I mean, the Broncos were staying. The Vikings were trading up. The Jets were staying to take a lineman. Like, they had trouble trading up to get Bowers. And the Raiders were like, oh, yeah, we'll take Bowers.
Brock Bowers.
Which nuked it. I love Bowers. I think
it hasn't affected his value really much at all.
No, I think he'll succeed either way. Minshew's a perfect quarterback for him. Aiden O'Connell would be a perfect quarterback for him. The issue is in the future, is this team actually going to have stability at head coach and GM? Who knows? But Bowers is an ultra talent that his dad was not happy. Went to Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, he'll open up a nice insurance firm in Vegas eventually.
Yeah.
The only other offensive skill position player they took was my guy, Dylan Lobb, out of UNH.
Love it.
Right down the street from where I grew up, about 20 minutes. Pass catching back extraordinaire, the best pass catching back in this draft, in my opinion. And, Zamir White was a big winner coming out of the draft because Lobb isn't competition for Zeus White. They've got some other also rans behind him. But Lobb could find himself as that pass catching back in year one. And he's another guy that's going late 4th, early 5th in these rookie drafts. And I'm totally okay taking a shot on him in those positions.
He's one of my favorite shots because this is the regime's pick. This is they went out and chose him. He is a great pass catcher. He is different to Zamir White. He's what they don't have. Mm-hmm. I think he's this year's Evan Hall. We could either have greatness or
with big winner, by the way, because the Colts didn't do anything at the running back position. They lost Zach Moss, and it's Jonathan Taylor, Evan Hall, and Trey Sermon.
But Doug, Trey Sermon.
Evan Hall, big winner.
Yeah.
Out of the draft. They didn't draft any running backs or sign any, so cool. Let's do our last team. Go, Chargers, go. They take Joe Alt, 5th overall. No surprise there. And then in the second round, they take
Christopher Walken, or was that Arnold?
That's a little bit of both. It was Christopher Arnold. They take Georgia wide receiver Ladd McConkey, 34th overall. And then they address the running back position a little bit later than a lot of us would have liked. But they get Troy running back Kamani Vidal, 181 overall. Very productive out of Troy. And then this player slipped to the 7th round, which I was surprised because I thought he had a really good Senior Bowl week. The tape on him isn't bad at all. And, the lineage alone. But USC wide receiver Brendan Rice went 225, which I thought was very intriguing. So, Tyler, talk to me about these Chargers offensive moves because God knows they need some freaking help.
I love Ladd McConkey. A lot of people love him a lot more than I do. I thought I'd be high on him, but there's a lot of people.
There's a lot of McDonkeys out there rooting for him.
The thing is what Ray brought to my attention is if you think Ladd is going to be the receiver one for this team more than a year, we are out of our mind. Like, they are going to go get a high-end receiver next year. They've got the offensive line intact. They got the quarterback. There's no tight ends next year in the draft pretty much, except for the Michigan guy.
True.
Loveland. Great name.
Sounds about right.
Yes. They are going to get one of those top 4 elite receivers for next year's 2005 class. So Ladd has 1 year of production in this offense. Now, will it be productive? Yes. Is it going to be the point where you're going to be comfortable feeling like maybe he's Chris Olave, a poor man's version of it this year? But after, are we feeling comfortable of him having stability as that receiver in this low passing offense? That's where I'm starting to have an issue and looking like, okay, maybe Brian Thomas as a long-term, worthy as a long-term, because I had Ladd as my wide receiver 4. Mm-hmm. Now it's like, okay, I want longevity. It'll be great this year. Like, could he get 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns? Yeah, sure. Why not? Like, he's going to have the targets. There's tons of vacated targets. The issue
Over
with vacated
200 vacated targets.
the issue with that is does it go into how many rushing attempts they're going to have with this team? You got to take half those vacated targets and put them towards rushing attempts with this
Probably.
offense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's where I'm kind of having the issue with, and I think I'd bump Thomas and Worthy above McConkey right now. And
makes
that is
sense.
saying a lot because I really like McConkey and his style, but just what Ray brought up is like there's almost a for sure chance they're going to upgrade this position again next year.
Yeah, McConkey slipped to the 206, I think, in a league to me, and the value was too good to pass up there. And I'm not a huge lad guy, but I was looking at the board and I'm like, this makes way too much sense. First, high second round draft capital, the fit's good, so he went there. Kamani Vidal is a very interesting prospect because Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins are leading the way, along with Isaiah Spiller. Yawn. Not related to CJ, just for the record. Vidal is interesting. I've seen a lot of people trade up to get him in rookie drafts. He's kind of creeping his way into the late third. I've seen. So he's been a hot name in the streets. And then Brendan Rice has been a pretty solid, like late fourth round guy that people have been taking flyers on, and I'm okay with that because he's the type of receiver, big body that they don't have on that roster. I mean they have Quentin Johnston, but whatever. I'm actually been a big fan of Josh. I think this all lays out for Josh Palmer to have a sneaky good fantasy year because Herbert loves him, and I think he's a good player. So if you got Josh Palmer on your rosters, I think you'll be solid.
Yeah. The issue is what's his price? Because like I said, like they're gonna keep upgrading this position, and Palmer will get slid down that depth chart each and every time.
Yeah, but if there's a competing team and Palmer's having a good year, you'll be able to sell him for like a early third or something like that.
That's
and I'd
true.
be okay with that. Yeah.
Yeah. The issue is we don't like people can love McConkey, people can love all these players, but we don't know what this offense is going to be like yet. That's the main issue. Is like we can love McConkey, but how many targets is he actually going to get realistically? This team also really likes the tight end position, and they have Hayden Hurst, so watch out.
Very unsexy with Will Disley and Hayden Hurst. Just to note, they did take Michigan wide receiver, so Harbaugh took one of his boys, Cornelius Johnson, at 253rd.
Who is a big 9-route guy who has suspect hands. Trust me, this is another guy I did my homework on, Doug.
Because no one's drafting him, so you're like, I want to try to get a diamond in the rough.
That's
all the diamonds are rough, is what it is.
Yes, the diamonds aren't diamonds. You're looking at
they're fugazis. They're all cubic zirconias.
They're fugazis, definitely for sure. And
yeah,
I was debating on that's like when I in UDPL 5th round I went gold the wide receiver because he had some upside as a kick returner and some draft capital. And I was like, ooh, Cornelius Johnson, Chargers, maybe he'll some bust out. No, there is absolutely nobody that enjoyed his tape.
Just his family.
Just his first name.
Yeah, just his family lovingly watching him. I'm like, who did I pick I'm trying to think who I even picked in the 5th round in UDPL now. I had a 5th round pick.
So yeah, like it's this.
Aeneas Smith is who I picked.
Yes, which he was on my board.
Yeah, sniped. Got him. Well, that is going to wrap up the AFC. So we are done, and we're going to bring you some fresh, hot, out the oven content next week. Tyler, what do we got on tap?
That's a good question. Probably a mock after rookie. After NFL draft.
I'm halfway through my drafts. A lot of them they're completed. I've got 2 auctions that are starting up. I've got a home dynasty league, and I've got another one going. So I'm about halfway through my draft season, and I'm having fun. I'm wheeling. I'm dealing. I'm taking veterans over picks in some instances, and we'll see how it works. But the thing I've learned about this class is that everyone's like, "Oh, it's so deep," but then you're actually in the draft, and you're like, you get to the 4th round, and you're like, "Fuck, this sucks."
Yeah.
And then I remember last year putting in for like 5 or 6 players in UDPL, like after the draft, and I was aggressive. And this year I'm like, there's two.
Yep.
And I'm like, I guess, it's not great. And I think it's interesting too, is that this class is very intriguing because we've talked about it before. You have these profiles that are just weird. They're either they're just one-year wonders or they've got very little production. It's very interesting how this is all going to sort out. I was telling Tyler, we were texting, and I said, I'm not going to be shocked a year from now if we look back on it and be like, man, that class wasn't as good as we thought it was going to be.
Which is going to suck.
Outside of the top, 8 picks, I think those are all locked in. Those are elite options. But outside of that, it's a lot of question marks. It's going to be very, very interesting. So I'm intriguing to circle back eventually and be like, yeah, maybe it is a great class, or it was like, some of these guys are just wet farts. And it could happen. So we shall see. And we'll see you next week on the Dynasty Happy Hour. Thanks for joining. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube. Do all those fun things. Check out our friends at Manscaped. Use code DHH. Also use Trophy Smack. Code DHH ring. Get a $60 free championship ring with your purchase of a trophy or a belt. That's going to wrap us up. We'll see you next week.